This one's taller than the other. All right. Put this on top. I think that's good. All right. The sign of a successful class, whether it's 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months, okay, is you've got some sort of game to get the students involved. This has to do with the building blocks, right? So this is typically what you're going to see on my students, you know, after, say, a 3-day class. And the sign of a good class is when this bag is empty and all the blocks, and I tell them typically, it's very rare that I give out all these blocks. And that really does motivate the students. But the sign of a good class is all the blocks have been given out and they all have structures like this. And we stand up at the end of the class and we take a picture, a selfie picture of the class. So imagine, you know, 20 students holding up this, you know, and just with a big smile on their face. That's a sign that you've done some successful adult learning. My name is Frank Damico, and I'm a senior SaaS trainer and developer with Optum Health Services, specializing in healthcare claims analytics. To me, in my concern, there's andragogy and then there's highly effective andragogy. Okay? And the last 20 years of my life, I've been focusing on highly effective andragogy. And in my opinion, highly effective andragogy is adult-based learning that sticks with the learners years after they've learned or they've picked up the skill, and after the class is over. So I've got a bachelor's of engineering and an MBA. I've got 20 plus years of experience in engineering, financial, consulting, project management, program management, and all those require some sort of teaching. Okay, adult learning. So it includes corporate training, right, at IBM and other corporate areas, and SaaS as well. 2 years as a college adjunct professor at Meredith College. And also more recently teaching big data analytics and data mining within the last 4 years. So with regards to how I got involved with adult-based learning, right? You know, springboarding off my bachelor's of engineering and MBA, and then in the corporate world. My first job, I did energy audits in New York City. And that was really actually a cool job. And I had to teach a team of 7 energy auditors how to go out into small businesses inside New York City, in Brooklyn, in Queens, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, and go look at these factories and teach them how to save money on their energy bills.
You were doing this before it was...
Oh yeah, I was doing adult learning.
You were doing this in your 20s?
In my 20s. I mean, even while I was going to night school for my MBA.
Wow.
So in my job, I was teaching adults how to go out into small factories in Brooklyn and Queens and how to do energy audits, how to write up the audits and present it to the owners so they would use more efficient light bulbs or use better insulation on their boilers, etc. So I had to teach these, let's just say, pre-engineers how to do this. So I didn't know anything really about andragogy at that point, right. But I had great mentors in my Bachelor of Engineering. I used their methods when I taught when I was actually in the real working world. I'll tell you what the main thing I learned, because I had to do the audits first before I taught these pre-engineers.
Right.
So I had to teach myself. So I learned, you know, when you go out and you're 20 years old and you're talking to some 50-year-old guy who owns a factory in Queens, right? And you go in there and you say, I'm going to give you a free energy audit, right? They're like, yeah, right, buddy. It was actually paid for by New York City.
Right.
New York City, we were under contract. Our consulting firm was under contract. They're like, yeah, okay, so what am I going to do? You're going to tell me to change light bulbs? What are you going to tell me to do, kid? You know, you 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So I learned immediately you have to establish credibility and respect with these 50-year-olds, or they're not going to listen to you. You could write up this great report about, you know, saving money, but unless they have your respect and they know it's really for free and they're really going to save money, they're not going to do anything with the report.
So in other words, you have to establish ground with them.
Oh yeah.
Dialogically speaking, you have to break the ice as far as
you have to get their respect.
Okay.
So I would explain to them what the process was. Hey, I'm going to look through your energy bills. I'm going to walk through your factory. This could be totally transparent. And I'm going to estimate what you can save and what the ROI is for the light bulbs, for the insulation, etc. Like, once you had them locked in, then they're like, okay, we'll let you walk around our factory.
So you had to teach others
how to do that.
how to do that.
How to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I was in a new job with IBM, the big thing in the 90s was re-engineering the corporation. Everybody was doing this. IBM was doing this. You know, all the Fortune 500 companies were re-engineering, changing their processes, streamlining their processes, reducing costs, and improving the skills of their manufacturing people so they could basically be more competitive in the marketplace. That was the big deal. So the vice president at the time assigned me. I was the director of the re-engineering program for this area of IBM. And they said, well, you're the guy. You have to teach all of our manufacturing people and all of our managers about re-engineering. So I read the book and went through it with another manager, and we co-taught. We did it together. We taught all the folks about re-engineering. And basically it's about streamlining and looking at all your processes. If you have 500 process steps, how do I reduce it down to 300 process steps without reducing quality? Okay? And what a lot of it has to do with using, back then it was information technology. So it was using scanners. Okay? So a lot of the manufacturing, what's commonplace today, when you go into Walmart or whatever, or you go to Kohl's, or you go to Target, whatever, and you're scanning all that, that all was introduced to companies in the 90s to reduce 500 steps by hand and do it by computer and scanning.
Automation.
Automation.
Yeah.
Well, what we would do was to say, because the book had 10 examples in there of other companies and what they had done. And I think one of the companies was actually Taco Bell. Was one. They're really, they did some re-engineering of their company, and Ford did some re-engineering, and all these other companies did. And you taught based on those models. You say, here, this is what we need to do. We have to basically map out every step we do today. How do we reduce it down? And by the way, when you're reducing it down here, you have 10 skills in your job now. You may have to add 5 more skills to reduce this down to 300 steps. So 2 things had to change. Reduce the number of steps and improve the skills of the manufacturing employees. So it's kind of a wake-up call for them. It's like, hey, you may be an expert on this IBM personal computer Model X, but guess what? When we streamline, we're going to be taking Model X, Y, and Z, putting it on the same manufacturing line. You got to learn how to do all 3 of them. FLEAN, so future learning expectations and needs. Okay, very important, very important. So if I was going to be talking to a new teacher or new trainer, I would say when you start a class, you do not start teaching until you understand future learning expectations and needs. Okay, and you need to document them because you need to come back during the next day or weeks in class and help the students connect the dots. What's in it for me? Okay. So I took a strategic approach when I was offered to be an adjunct professor at the business school for Meredith College. I took a strategic approach and I said, listen, I'm not going to just be teaching out of a textbook here. Yeah, I would have a nice textbook, but I want them to be engaged. So I came up with this idea. The class was called Fundamentals of Investments. Okay, teaching them about the stock market, the bond market, okay, corporate investing and stuff like that. Okay, the book was okay, but I wanted to make it interesting to them. So I came up with this game called the Millionaire Investing Game. All right, and I wanted them to have both hands-on skills, and also book skills combined together, but put it into a game. Okay, and I want them to be able to play this game where they were investing $1 million of game money, okay, but to try and beat the S&P 500, okay, over there was a 3-month period in the fall of 06. I did this fall of 06 and the fall of 07. And so bottom line is I gave them like a 10-point score sheet on how to rate stocks. And every week they had to compare how their $1 million was doing versus $1 million in the S&P 500. So bottom line is the second year we really got it figured out. All 10 of my students beat the S&P 500. I made a call to the News and Observer. I said, hey, we got 20-year-old college women here that all beat the S&P 500. What do you think? Is that ready for a story? He goes, yeah, I think so. And they came in with the cameras and everything, and they basically filmed my students or took pictures of my students presenting, how they beat the S&P 500. So the S&P had gone up 5% from, this is September 1st of 07 to Thanksgiving of 07. Over that 3 months, S&P had gone up 5%, and my students had gone anywhere from 7 to 12%.
Wow.
Okay. And yeah, there was some ups and downs during that 3 months. Sometimes they were under the S&P, but at the end of the 3 months, they were all above. And they had the PowerPoint charts to show what they had done. So that was very exciting, and it keeps them engaged. It's like every week. We're not just handing in my homework from the textbook. I'm showing Professor Damico my PowerPoint chart on how I'm doing versus the S&P 500. And they had a chance to switch stocks in the middle of October, one chance to switch on 4 stocks. Okay? By the end of Thanksgiving, they'd all done it. So it was cool, and they were engaged. So they were motivated. A key thing, we had the motivation with the re-engineering we talked about, right? How do you motivate corporate people? Well, here I had to find out a way to motivate these college students, and it worked out really well. So you want to be successful in adult learning as a teacher, or you want to be successful as a grammar school teacher. It really doesn't matter. When you're dealing with adults, even when you're dealing with children, but especially with adults, you have to know what their favorite radio station is. WIIFM. What's in it for me? It really doesn't matter in life. Okay, if you understand who you're communicating with and where they're tuning into, okay, and what's important to them, you can teach them anything. So yeah, it's SAS. It's the Statistical Analytics Solutions Company, over 40 years old, and worked with them from 2008 to 2016 before I took the job with Optum Health Services. So over that 8 years, towards the tail end, is when I really started getting into the teaching. And it was teaching SAS Visual Analytics, which is basically, it's a software tool where you have powerful charts. You can create powerful charts to maximize profits. And you're dealing with adult learning. And in this case, what was unique about this was different than Meredith. Meredith, I was just teaching business students, right? Here, I'm teaching banking people. I could have one class with people from the banking industry or the insurance industry or the government industry, all with different motivations. So if you could identify what are the future learning expectations and needs of the people in the banking industry, the insurance industry, or government, whoever's in your class, and you stay and you come back on that every day and make sure that students are connecting the dots between what you're teaching them with the SAS software and what their needs are, they will stay engaged. So the banking person could say, hey, I need you to use software. I need SAS software. I need to create bar charts or bubble maps, which can help me quickly identify blah, blah, blah. Great, that's you, that's student A. Student B, who's in government, is going to have something totally different. So I would document that, but he'd come back to that every half day or every day and say, Johnny, you said this. We just taught you these 10 skills over the last day. Are you understanding how that connects with this bar chart that you want to do? And they would say, yeah, I can do this and this with my data, or this and this with my data, and I can solve that problem. That's what you want. You want them connecting the dots during class, and they're already thinking about when they leave and they get back to their job, how they're going to be more effective. That's how you use Fleens. And I used the same thing after that when I took the job with Optum Health Services, and now teaching healthcare data analytics and data mining. I do the same thing, but here we have people all in the same industry now. So now I look at their fleens or maybe key performance indicators in their jobs. I document that, and the same thing. Every day we come back. How do we take what you learned in the last day and apply it to solve that problem you told me about on day one?
Talk about what?
Well, how do you motivate employees that have been doing the same old for the last 10 years, and now all of a sudden the competition is breathing down your neck and they have to change, okay?
So what are the main points?
So main points is, number one, you have to have executive management in the boat and willing to compensate them to learn new skills.
You have to pay them to learn new skills.
That's right. You got to compensate them, you got to reward them. But you don't pay them just to learn the skills. You pay them when they apply the skills, and it actually decreases costs or increases revenue. So yeah, you have to help them and encourage them. So A, executive management has to be in the boat. And then B, they have to learn new skills. So that if they had 10 skills in their job, now they may have to add like 3 or maybe 15 skills, and it'll do a little bit more out of the same 40-hour work week. They got to be more productive. And then you basically just have to follow up with them, and you have to tell them that the competition, and you have to show them facts and figures how you're losing market share. So that will motivate them. The reward system and the fact that they may lose the business, those two things will motivate them. So you still have to identify their fleens. And what I do is I'll put an example up. I'll say, here is a key indicator from a previous student. And that will spark an idea from them. And it has to do, again, we're trying to optimize Medicare claims for the elderly, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So one of them may be responsible for the state of Florida, right? And they want to optimize Medicare claims for the state of Florida. And let's just say that their boss says, hey, we want you to focus on durable medical equipment for the elderly. How do you optimize that for the state of Florida? And I'll write that down. They may say that they're looking at wheelchairs. For the next 3 months, we're looking at wheelchairs, durable medical equipment, and how to optimize that and make sure that these Medicare patients and the elderly are getting the best bang for the buck. Fine, I write that down. So say I have 10 students in the class, I'll write down each one of those needs. And as we go through the training, there's different claim codes for wheelchairs and Medicare and durable medical equipment. As I go through the training over the next 3 days, for that student, I'm going to make sure that we hit durable medical equipment. So that helps them start connecting the dots and getting motivated. So when they take this book, and I always tell them, listen, my job is to help you connect the dots between your job and this book. Okay? This book is just got a bunch of nice formulas in it and software procedures, but at the end of the day, if you can't connect the dots between this book and your job, it's a waste of time. So that's my job. So I survey actually what they call some of the high impact users. Some of the high impact SaaS users out there, and I say, okay, what's going to be important for you in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months? And then those topics go in the new books, because typically a book's going to last about 2 years and then you're on to new things. So I survey on future hot topics in the healthcare industry and then write the books and then usually have a case study, right? So let's just say the case study is regarding skilled nursing facilities, okay? And so you could have 7 chapters in the book on different skills, but you're following that skilled nursing facility case study. How do we optimize the claims, the Medicare claims for the skilled nursing? So it makes continuity, and it's actually like this could be something that could really be doing on the job, where they're using these different skills for this. It could be skilled nursing, home health care, it could be durable medical equipment. So it doesn't matter, but you have the steps in those 7 chapters. So it's always good to have a case study. Now, and that will work for classroom or distance learning. But the key thing now, with more of the market moving to distance learning is growing exponentially now. Not only in our business, but other learning companies. So what I've learned is you have to have more visuals. Okay, it's got to be the content has to be clear. Because when you're in distance learning and somebody's in California or Montana or South Dakota, wherever they are, you got to be able to communicate. So what I do typically is I add like 50% more pages. Will be more screenshots.
50%.
50%. So a normal book in the classroom might be 200 pages with only classroom learning. But for distance learning, I'll make it 300 pages. Okay? Wow. And there'll be more screenshots and more instructions because, again, you got that bell curve. You got to kind of tailor your material, not for the advanced person on the top 20% of the bell curve. You want to tailor it more towards the lower half. Because those are the people that are going to drag your class. They're going to slow you down. And then you're going to lose the other half. So you got to kind of bring it down a little bit. And the more you put in, the better. So key thing, 2 key things. Talk to your key customers about future topics. Do a case study. And follow that, through the chapters. And then for distance learning, add, and then the key thing for all of it must be what I call ETL, ETR. Easy to learn, easy to replicate. If you're writing a book, okay, and you're teaching, it's got to be easy to learn. And then when they go home and they take it back and they want to apply, it's got to be easy to replicate, okay? If it's not, you're writing an effective book. If you want to do highly effective andragogy, it's got to be ETL, ETR. So when I'm teaching, typically like every hour, hour and a half, we're doing a 20-minute exercise. Okay? So during that 20 minutes, you don't know what's happening. There's a thing called a chat screen. Okay? So in your chat screen, every 5 minutes, you ask the students, what are you seeing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing right now? If you're seeing what I'm showing on my screen, because they could all see my screen. If they can see that, then they're tracking, okay? And I typically tell the students, if you don't see what I'm seeing, raise your hand now, because you can raise your hand like in the distance learning classroom.
Right.
So you can't let 20 minutes go by, and that's how I go back. I'll say, all right, so what is the claim dollar amount you're seeing now? And I've got 10,590. If they all put 10,590, we keep moving the next 5 minutes.
Wow.
So that's how you track.
So it's in-time evaluation.
In time. You can't let.
There's no exit polls here. It's every 5 minutes is an exit poll.
Well, we do an exit poll at the end, which is a survey.
The exit poll is wrapped. It's like it's a constant.
It's constant. You cannot let 20 minutes go by and then somebody's lost.
Right.
Can't do it with distance learning. If it's in classroom, it's a lot easier to monitor, right? Because you can see their body language. You can see if they're like frustrated or something, okay? You can actually walk up to them and see what they're doing on the exercise on their computer, if they're getting it right or getting it wrong. Remote monitoring, distance learning, whole different ball game. You've got to use your chat screens, and typically you'll have that on a WebEx type of training session where you can ask them, if it's a 20-minute exercise, every 5 minutes, okay, I have this on my, I'm at this step 7 through the exercise. I'm showing this on my screen. What are you showing? And then they show it in their chat. If they're all showing the same, great, then everybody moves on. You don't want 20 minutes to go by and then one person is lost. And then you have to try and get that person back up to speed. That will put the rest of the class to sleep. So continuous monitoring in the classroom or distance learning is a key to success. One of the really, really important topics for adult learning is that the students need to know how you're going to answer their questions and that you are going to answer their questions. The students always have different questions and different perspectives, but I start on day 1 when I'm teaching to let them know that there's 3 types of questions, and no matter what type of question you ask, you will get the answer. So 3 types of questions. Number 1 is quick and easy, right? I can usually answer it at the snap of a finger, and usually 1/3 of the questions that you get, let's just say you get 30 questions over that, the course of that class or whatever. 10 out of the 30 are going to be quick and easy, and when I answer them real quick, we make it fun. You take out your old easy button here.
That was easy.
And then the class laughs. In fact, they will tell me to hit the button when I forget, So you forgot to hit it, Frank.
That was easy.
And I hit that. So a third of the questions will be easy and you answer them really fast. Another third of the questions I call tier 2 questions. You may actually have to go into the book. You may have to do a little bit of analysis, right? And to get the answer, it may take a little bit of time. You may have to wait till after that chapter is done and talk one-on-one with the student and get that answer to the question. So those are tier 2 questions. They may take a little bit more time. You want to make sure you got it right. You don't want to answer it fast and easy. And tier 3 is you've gone through the book, you've done some analysis, and it's like, well, I need to do some research after class. Okay, and that's all part of being a teacher. Sometimes you may have to spend an extra 15 minutes or 30 minutes after class, and you probably have to budget that into your time, that you're going to have to do some research. And then maybe send an email to the student with that question, and then maybe copy the rest of the students so everybody's in on it. So I always let them know on day 1, right at the beginning of class, we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 type of questions. No matter what they are, we'll get you the answer to your questions, and that will put them at ease. You always have to have evaluations, whether it's a 3-day class or a 3-month class. At the end, you want to know 3 things. How well did the instructor do, right? Number 2, how was the book? Was the book good? And number 3, how was the class environment and the learning, whether it's classroom learning or distant learning? The most appropriate surveys for that is really SurveyMonkey. It's an industry standard. And the students can go in there basically in 10 minutes and they score from 1 through 5. 5s are good, 1s are not good, right? And my average is about 4.9 as an instructor. And the books average typically in the high 4s, 4.8. And the environment, that varies. The classroom, I don't control the classroom. If it's too cold or it's too hot or the lights are not good, I don't control that. So that could be anywhere from, the mid 4s to the high 4s. After a class, 3 days, 3 months, you got to have those numbers. And also the comments are very important. What was very useful about the class? What was the least useful? Those things actually go into future updates of the book. So some students will say, I wish you could have done this case study. I wish you could have done this at chapter 4. And we do that in the future. We'll make those changes. If I'm surveying for a future book, that's something you want to set up a half-hour phone call with 10 key users or 10 key learners that you're going to be teaching to. Could be 100 or 1,000 that you're going to be teaching to over the future, but maybe 10 or 20 that you trust, and you have half-hour interviews with them and really key questions on rating on the must-have topics versus the wish list. And what you do is you create the book based on the must-have topics, what's going to be critical to their success in the next 6 to 12 months. The must-have topics are the ones that would take money out of their pocket and pay for. The would like to have is, well, I'd like to have it, okay? And then you write your book on the must-have, and then you're going to have a book which is going to engage your students. So plan A versus plan B, right? Particularly with remote learning or distance learning. You always have to have plan A and plan B, right? Because Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong on the internet, okay, or a network, it'll go wrong, all right? So I typically work with a data coach, okay, and we work together. And if for some reason my network goes down for whatever, a half hour or something, I have to reboot, he takes over. All right. You don't want to lose time. You don't want to lose students where, let's just say they're losing a half hour or an hour of valuable time that they've blocked off, let's just say for that day or for that week. So you always have to have plan A and plan B. Actually, you should design it into your distance learning. So if the class has 3 days blocked out, the book should really be designed that if everything goes perfect, you're done in 2.5 days. But as we know, with distance learning, things never go perfect. By having by having a book that's only for 2.5 days, and there will be some network glitches either on the student side or on the trainer's side. By accounting for that, when 3 days are done, you'll be able to get all the materials in. And another thing is if you're doing on-site training, always get there a day earlier. So if you're training and they say, hey, Frank, you're training in Miramar, Florida next month, okay? And it starts on Tuesday. You don't arrive on Tuesday. You know, you fly in maybe Sunday, you go there on Monday, you make sure that all the audiovisual equipment is working, that you have a good internet connection. So yeah, you got to make sure that all the technology things are taken care of before you start class. Personally, I'll tell you personally, I would prefer face-to-face training. Okay, I like that. I like the interface with the students. Okay, it's fun. It makes it more fun.
Right.
But the reality is, the market keeps moving more and more to distance learning, and distance learning is here to stay. So it's very common. For example, the Project Management Institute. If you're a certified project manager, you need 20 hours a year of continuing ed. Project Management Institute, you can go online, and they have these little 1-hour webinars. Okay, and you can pick those. You can pick up your learning there.
Which is also a theme of andragogical concepts because it's specific to the learner when they need it.
Exactly.
So they
on demand, learning on demand.
Give it to me. Cut out the fat.
Right. Yeah. Another example also was the SAS Institute. 10 years ago, you didn't have these 1 or 2 hour webinars on demand. Now you go to the SAS website, SAS software. They're all over the place.
So it's just spreading like wildfire.
It is. You can't do business without having on demand these little 1-hour webinars, whatever. So that's another example. Is you look at Fortune 500 companies, right? And I remember when I was working with IBM, if you had to learn about internet security, whatever, they'd sit you in a classroom for a day. It'd be so boring, and you're just like beat up. It's like, let me go back to my job, please, But now they have these web-based training. Instead of sitting 8 hours in a classroom being bored, in 2 hours you go through 5 chapters, and you have to answer the questions to pass. That's how you do your internet training, to make sure you can protect the company's assets and you avoid getting hacked. And now you can learn that in 2 hours, and you have to answer a quiz in order to get out. And even if you say you fail the first time, you take it again, another 10 minutes, and you're done. So yeah, distance learning and internet learning is here to stay. I'd say that you have to be very curious.
What do you mean by that?
As a teacher, because when you talk about future learning expectations and needs, if the student isn't really communicating that, and they're not, sometimes they don't get it. They might talk about a future learning expectation and need that's really not related to the class. You have to kind of ask them questions. You also have to be like, a doctor, trying to get it out of them.
Diagnosing.
You have to diagnose and get what is the real future learning expectation is need. And sometimes what they say right now might be different in 3 minutes. Say, really? Oh, that's what you mean. That's what you're really going to do in your job next week or next month. Let's change that, what you just said, and put what the real need is. I talk with students. I talk with them a week before training. I don't wait. I've developed relationships with them a week before training.
Right. So
okay?
what's
okay? I never walk in cold. I never walk in cold. The teaching business, this is a relationship business. Okay? If you want the students to get the most out of it, you have to understand where they're coming from, in my opinion, a week before the training starts. So I have a call, like right now, I've got a class coming up next Thursday and Friday. I got a call that Monday with the class. I've got a call that Monday with the class, and we're going to go over, it's actually a distance learning class, and we're going to make sure that they can connect to the internet, that they can get to the class, that they can get to the software. There's about 5 different things on what they call quality assurance pre-class checklists that have to be done. You don't want to do that day 1 of class. And also with distance learning, here's another thing must have that I tell my students: have 2 monitors. Have one monitor for the notes and one monitor for the software. If you have one single monitor and you're trying to flip back and forth between the PDF notes and the software, you'll go crazy. Have 2 monitors, and that's what we teach a week before the class. And I tell them, if you don't have 2 monitors, talk to your IT folks, get 2 monitors.
So you're almost teaching them how to be taught.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, with distance learning, hey, I don't like surprises. What can I tell you? I don't like surprises, and frankly, my students don't like surprises either. Okay? So, yeah, that's why you have to plan. If you fail to plan,
you plan to fail.
You plan to fail.
What have your students taught you?
Patience. So number one thing that my students have taught me is patience, and anything can happen, and you've got to, whether it's a very advanced student, okay, who's asking you a lot of questions, all right, and sometimes, asking too many questions. You have to have patience with them, okay? And then you have the other students that are kind of maybe really slow or novices, and they just ain't getting it for whatever reason, and you're gonna have to have patience with them. Don't ever assume that this class is going to go the same way it did a month ago. It's always going to be different. And again, Murphy's Law, if something could go wrong, it will. And you just have to roll with it. And just make sure that if you're teaching a 3-day class, you don't have too much material, right? Because things will go wrong, and you're going to have to help some of the students play catch up, okay? And you've got different skill levels that you have to manage. There may be some technology issues or some technical glitches that happen with the computers that you have to fix. So you basically have to plan for that. As far as not cutting corners, some of the guidelines about not cutting corners. If you're writing a book that's going to be used, and especially for distance learning, don't cut corners. Make sure you have those extra screenshots in there. Okay, make sure you have those extra instructions in there. Think about things that can go wrong when you're putting together a book and it's going to be used for distance learning. And I would recommend, the way that the technology is going today, write the book as if it will be used for distance learning. Because chances are, if you're teaching it in the classroom, a year from now, they're going to say, teach it with distance learning. So that's something to consider. Don't cut corners when you're putting together the book. And also, when you're identifying their fleas, right? Don't rush that. Take your time. Make sure, some time might take much as an hour. I might have 10 or 20 students and take as much as an hour on the first day of class to understand those fleas. Don't cut corners there. The better you understand what their fleas are, then the next 90% or 95% that you teach and you help them connect the dots, that's the key to a good class.
Biggest barriers?
Biggest barriers to
adult learning?
Distractions, right? So what I like to do is tell students, hey, you don't have to look at your phone. You don't have to look at your email, because I tell them on day 1, we'll have breaks in the morning, we have 1-hour lunch, breaks in the afternoon, and you're going to have plenty of time to look at your emails, plenty of time to look at your phones and all that. So no worries, just put them on mute and have some fun. Biggest enabler of adult learning. I really think it's the heart of the teacher. Okay? Because if the teacher really cares, right? You've maybe heard the old saying, nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. And I'll tell you, and when you've been in the class, when the teacher doesn't care, right? Bueller, etc. So if the teacher cares, that's the biggest enabler right there, the heart of the teacher. So again, think about the teachers that you've had, the good teachers you've had in life, the ones that have had the enthusiasm, right? And had the energy and the agility and the vitality, right? It's very important not only to be to have mental agility, but also physical agility. So for me personally, if I'm going to be teaching and sitting down for 8 hours, up and down between, standing up and teaching, I like to go to the gym. I like to go to the gym before, maybe the first thing in the morning if I'm teaching, and I just like to have that agility and the mental agility and the physical agility, because that will help you have the enthusiasm. And you need to have that, really. Even in the morning and the afternoon, you need to have it all the way through. And you have to have that. Your enthusiasm will be contagious for the students, and they'll have a better attitude for learning. Well, and that's why I go back to the concept, easy to learn, easy to replicate.
Right.
Okay. So when I put these books together, after 2 or 3 exercises, they're almost experts. Okay, and they can teach it to somebody else by having it laid out step by step, where you learn it here in the early part of the chapter and you repeat it again in the back part of the chapter. That's the step towards mastering. Repetition is the step towards mastering.
Biggest mistakes you've ever made in the context of andragogical facilitation? What?
Okay, biggest mistakes was
What have you learned?
Early in my teaching adult learning career. When you think that just because management says we all have to do that, doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. Okay? You still have to understand their expectations and their needs. Okay? So just because management is supporting re-engineering or whatever the hot topic is for your corporation and whatever it is you have to teach, you still have to have that personal connection with whoever you're teaching. If it's fellow employees or managers that you're teaching to, whoever it is, you have to understand what's in it for them. Again, it goes back to WIIFM. You have to understand what's in it for them, and it's different for everybody. All right, this is really kind of a wrap-up of what I've been talking about. So number one, when teaching a new class of students, always remember the radio station WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? And ask each student to tell you what their expectations and future needs are, the FLEANs, future learning expectations and needs. And document those, right? You have to have them documented because you're going to revisit them day 2 or week 2 or down the line, and that gets you to number 2, which is once you have the FLEANs documented, you help the student connect the dots between the skills that they're learning and what are those future needs. So how are they going to apply that? How are they going to take the skills and apply it to their future needs, whatever it is, and either make their job easier, make their quality of life better, whatever it is. But basically, if you're not applying the skills, it's wasted learning. Okay, so identify up front, revisit in the future, and help them connect the dots. Sometimes they have trouble connecting the dots, and that's what a teacher's for, to help them connect the dots. How do I solve this? Well, how do I do it this way? Well, let's talk about that, and maybe get the class involved. Okay, so those are 2 things. Identify the needs. Number 2, connect the dots. Number 3, I like to use some sort of game-based learning, all right, to help motivate them and the individual student, or even student teams. If you could have 18 students that have 3 teams of 6. Okay, so individually or with student teams, just have a little bit of game there so they can apply their skills, score points, have fun, whether using the mega blocks or whatever, something else, doesn't really matter, just something that's fun. So the key thing for all these 3 things is you want to make the learning stick. So as I said earlier, the key thing for, you have andragogy and you have highly effective andragogy, which is my goal. And so for highly effective andragogy, you want to make sure that the learning sticks for years to come after they're done with the training, and then you've done your job. But I will tell you that taking this teaching approach, right, or this adult learning approach, is going to help you not only as a teacher, but in all things you do in life. So if you're a parent, it's going to help you be a better parent. Right? If you're a spouse, it's going to help you be a better spouse. Or if you're in sales, for example, nobody wants to be sold. When you buy something, nobody wants to be sold. They want to be educated. So the more effectively you can educate the adults, the better your life's going to be.
Any last words?
Just if you have a desire to be an adult teacher or teach adults, I just say, kind of put yourself in from their perspective, right? And think about who the best teachers were that you had in your life, and who the worst teachers were. And if the worst teachers, you will remember immediately, okay? Don't be like them. be like the best teachers you've had, and then really care about your students, and it'll be fun all the way around.